coming up next on the Lowe Zone. NBA's number one overall pick Paolo Banchero is already making the history books in just his first 3 games. In the Los Angeles Lakers, well, there's trouble in Hollywood once again. The Los Angeles Lakers off to an 0-3 start. In the Philadelphia 76ers, the Beasts of the East, not so much to start the season. They're off to an 0-3 start as well as Joel Embiid and James Harden look as worse as they can be. All that and more coming up next on the Lowe Zone. Good morning, everybody. I'm Justin Lowe alongside Seamus Zarlingo, my new co-host. We'll get to Seamus in just a second, but for you guys at home, good morning and welcome back to the Lowe Zone. We've already had 2 episodes, so this is our 3rd episode of the Lowe Zone presented by Good Time Media. I'm super excited because we took this long break, a much needed break. The Celtics were in the finals, as many. I cover the Boston Celtics, so the Celtics went on this huge final run. They had a 2-week break, then jumped right into the summer league. It was just a long process. I recorded 2 episodes, and I was just so busy. But I'm back, and I wanted to do this right. I wanted to bring in another face who not only knows about the Celtics, because obviously we're going to talk about the Celtics on this show as well, but who knows the NBA. And I work with Seamus Zarlingo alongside Celtics Talk Weekly over at my podcast. I run with Rob Atane and Ian Angelo as well. And Seamus knows a lot about the game of basketball. And I talk so high, not just saying this because he's right here, but I just talk so high on Seamus because he's so educated on basketball itself, not just the Celtics. He's also not biased at all. I try not to be biased. We're not really going to let that affect this show at all, us being Celtics fans. But Seamus, welcome into the Lowe Zone. I'm super excited to have you here as a co-host. When the idea popped up of Wyatt allowing me to add a co-host, you instantly popped into my mind. Wyatt said I can find some guy that said, no, I have the guy I want, and you're the guy, and you're here, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be here too, and I'm excited to talk about basketball in the morning with you because we're always talking about it late at night. It's always midnight on the East Coast for you. We're talking about the Celtics late night, but now we get to talk about the NBA in the morning, and I'm really excited about that. Of course, I did a show last year with my father. I'm still kind of doing a show with my father. It's on and off right now, so definitely trying to expand into the NBA world, but this is certainly an outlet to do so. So I thank you for that.
So as many of you saw in the opening credits, we have a lot to talk about because it's opening week for the league, for the NBA. It's been a great opening week for the NBA. Well, not for some teams like the Los Angeles Lakers, Philadelphia 76ers, 2 teams who have on paper really good roster, somewhat decent roles, but they just aren't playing well. But we'll get to that. Look, Seamus, I want to talk about a guy that you and I are pretty familiar with, East Coast. Time we played him last night, the Boston Celtics played number 1 overall pick, Paolo Banchero last night, and he had a little off shooting night, but he ended up with 23 points. He did look really dominant last night, and I know the Orlando Magic, I know they're 0-3, but they are they're like the best 0-3 team I've seen. Like, they're so fun to watch. I know they're one of the youngest teams. I think last night in the broadcast, they were saying how their combined age is 23 and a half or 24 and a half, something like that, which is insane. These guys play with heart. Paolo Banchero coming in at 19 years old. He's younger than me. I'm pretty sure he's younger than you. And he sings, and I remember, I think it was my first episode of the Lowe Zone, Seamus, a few months ago when Paolo went into the summer league. He played 1 game, and he had just this monstrous game. I mean, his physique, how he's built, he looks like he's been a veteran. He looks like he's been in this league. He looks like he's been hanging around the big boys for quite some time, and he's coming in. Let me read you this. First of all, he's averaging 34 minutes a game, so the young gun's getting thrown in there. He is the guy in Orlando. 27 points in his debut, 20 points in Atlanta, 20 points or 23 points against the Boston. He's getting up 18 shots a game, and he's shooting 42% from the field, along with his 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He could do a little bit of everything on the court. What do you see from Paolo Banchero? Because he's already etching his name into that Rookie of the Year trophy just 3 games in.
Paolo Banchero, a little bit of what you said is what I've seen from him thus far, is the fact that he does look like an NBA player. And that's really what's jumped out to me so far about Paolo is the fact he does look like he belongs out there, period, just by his body and his build. I mean, in college, I was a little questionable on his skill, but nonetheless, his size was certainly there. And yet we see it now too. His skill is improving as his NBA career is now going to unfold. It's only 3 games in though so far, but we're seeing what you averaged or you pointed out his stats already. He's averaging almost, I don't want to say all-star numbers, but if you tweak those numbers just a little bit, they're not too far away so far. And it's only 3 games into his career, but still a long way to go. Paulo, though, he has a lot of support around him. I will say this about Paolo and being the first round pick for the Orlando Magic. Everybody says about the Magic and the Kings, these two teams, if a player lands there, they're just done. But Paolo Banchero is the player to change the Magic franchise. He is their star. When you look at their team, he is their number one guy. And behind him, you have these other pieces in which you hope to develop into a championship team one day. You have Jalen Suggs back there, Markelle Fultz, Cole
Jonathan
Anthony, Franz Wagner, Mo Bamba, all these guys Wendell Carter, all these young guys who they still hope to develop alongside Paolo Banchero. And ultimately, in the long run, I think this Magic team, you mentioned it, they're one of the best 0-3 teams, and they're one of the most fun teams to watch. I think they can be a legitimate team. Maybe that doesn't make noise this year, but certainly next year or the year after that, because Paolo Banchero, we're going to see his name in the All-Star game sooner rather than later.
Seamus, when we look at this, and last night, obviously, we saw the Celtics play the Orlando Magic, and we saw the injury report come out. And you mentioned guys like Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Markelle Fultz. There's also other guys on that roster that are injured right now. They could have been good last year as well, but before they got Paolo Banchero, but injuries just such an injury-ridden team, and it stinks to see that because everybody's so young in their career. And I don't know what it is about, or they just seem to always have injured players. And I don't wish that upon anybody, especially Paolo Banchero, when he is so evidently the future of the Magic. Is he going to be the next? I think he could be. I don't know how to put this. Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway type deal where they drafted him and he turns into this superstar, all-star type guy. Paolo Banchero could very much easily be their Penny Hardaway, their Shaquille O'Neal, their Dwight Howard of the 2020s. Just this time, hopefully they're a little bit more patient with him and they develop his. Hey, you never know with the pieces that if they could develop the pieces around Paolo Banchero, this Orlando team is going to be a force to reckon with in upcoming years.
Yeah, and undoubtedly. And I think Paolo Banchero has the mentality to be an all-star and to be a great player. Yeah. I mean, of course, it's three games into someone's career. It's very, it's a little bit of a stretch to call them a great player, but the number one overall pick and someone who has been touted by his agent, Mike Miller, of course, who was out the game last night, the Celtics Magic game last night, and just so many others around the Magic organization, the NBA, and of course the scouting departments of all these teams who looked at him before coming into the draft this year. And so I think Paolo Banchero, the Magic, we had an argument over the summer. I don't know if we had an argument, but there was an argument over the summer that, Chet Holmgren, is he going to go number one? And Jabari Smith going to go number one? Banchero, all three seem to be pretty good picks. But right now, Banchero, he could be honestly the best of the three and has been thus far. And the Magic, I certainly think they have a gem on their hands with Paolo Banchero.
And it's funny you say that, Seamus, because I literally, my next question to you is what gives Paolo, and I know we've only seen 3 games of him. I know Chet Holmgren is out for the entirety of the season, so it's kind of hard to kind of compare and debate. But what does Paolo hold over guys like Jaden Ivey, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith? What does he hold over those guys who still went high in the draft?
It's really the size, the length, the versatility, the switchability, the perimeter game. Today's NBA is so based upon the perimeter and teams' ability to switch, specifically on the defensive end of the floor. And Paolo Banchero, he has all the tools in his arsenal to do that and so much more. Offensively, he has the skill set to be the number one option. And defensively, he has the skills to be a lockdown defender like we're seeing a Jason Tatum do right now. I really do think, looking at Jason Tatum, their games are not the same necessarily, but I do think Paolo Banchero, can he get to a level in which Jason Tatum is at right now, where we're talking about him as the best wing in the game? I think that's certainly a possibility. You look at Jabari Smith, you look at Chet Holmgren, his counterparts in the draft coming in, the two guys who were considered to go number one over him potentially. Chet Holmgren, switchable, versatile, bigger, but he just doesn't have that NBA body. We know he's kind of a rail, and we saw it in Pro-Am too. He broke his foot right away. That's going to be something that plays out over time, but you never know what can happen with that. And that was the concern coming in, and we're already dealing with it. Jabari Smith, I do have a lot of faith for as well. I just don't know if he has quite the skill set as Banchero, but I will say Jabari Smith too, highly, highly motivated athlete and somebody who will definitely, most definitely get better over time. So I think Banchero will be the best of the three so far. I mean, he has been thus far, and I think he will end up being, because of his size, because of his switchability, because of all the tools he has in his arsenal. But I do think Jabari Smith, he could be right there, second right there. Jaden Ivey, I think he can be an all-star guard in this league. I think he can be right up there with them. But Banchero, he has the tools in which you need for your number one superstar in today's NBA, which is a switchable, versatile wing. And we see that with our own team with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Those guys, they pretty much run the league right now. They pretty much run the league. And the Magic, luckily, although he's young, they have one of those players now.
I just remember, and again, I mentioned this early in the episode. It's it's not really one of those I told you so moments to the people who didn't believe in Paolo Banchero, because there were people who somehow didn't believe in Paolo Banchero. But at the same time, when we watched Summer League, and I don't even mean his skill, obviously his skill was on a whole other level. But as we mentioned, just his physique, his body language. This guy is a solid. How tall is how tall is tall off the tip of your head?
I want to say 6'10" or 6'11".
I know he's I know he's 250, 230, 250. He's a solid. He looks like he's been in the NBA for some years, and that is so important. And he looks like he's in shape, and I'm just really excited for the Orlando Magic, because they have such a bright future, not just with Paolo Banchero, but just around and just all together. And they're going to be a force to reckon with in the Eastern Conference for the years to come. Could they, Shane, is to you, since we're on the topic of the Magic, could the Orlando Magic, say they get everybody healthy, could they make a push for the play-in this year?
This year, I find it a little bit tough just because of how deep the NBA actually is. But then again, we always have surprise teams every single season make their way up the standings and end up in a place in which we never expect them. So the Magic, I will say, they do have one thing going for them. They understand the philosophy of today's NBA and where the NBA is going. Some teams that we're going to talk about today simply do not at all. And it's unfortunate to watch, or maybe not us for Celtics fans, but the Magic, they understand what they're trying to build there. For years and years and years, the Magic, they were pretty much stuck in neutral. They were drafting players in which didn't fit together, or they were drafting draft busts and ultimately making no progress in making it to the playoffs, or middle of the road progress where they're a 7 seed and really just going nowhere. Now they have Paolo Banchero, their superstar. They have Jalen Suggs, who they drafted last year. Like I mentioned, Cole Anthony. I'm blanking on everybody's name. Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter, Mo Bamba, Jonathan Isaac, as you mentioned. All of these guys, this is a fast team that moves the ball. We saw it last night. They have implemented philosophies into their team so far in which can be used for success. And that is something the Orlando Magic have not seen in years and years and years. And finally, it looks like they have an NBA caliber team ready to play NBA caliber basketball with the best of them. I don't know if that results in them being in the play-in this year, but I do think it results in them improving mightily over time. And, considering that fact, this year could potentially be a year in which Orlando, we're looking at them as a 15 seed, but hey, maybe at the end of the day, we're looking at the standings and they're right there in the play-in at the end of the season. That could certainly be a possibility with the Magic this year.
I will say that even if they miss out on the play-in tournament this year, maybe even next year, they set up for success. They really are. Their future, again, I keep saying it, their future is so bright. It's just like, I'm so excited for that. Or, they're just so fun to watch. Like we said, have to be the best 0-3 team in the league, the most fun to watch. These guys are legitimately skilled. These guys are legitimately talented. They put up fights. All three of their losses, they've had leads in. They've stayed in these games. It's not like they're getting blown out or they're just losing every single game, just, blank slate. No, they are fighting. They are a pesky team, and they gave the defending Eastern Conference champions, Boston Celtics, a fight last night. And Paolo Banchero, if he could, oh my gosh, if he stays healthy, he face of the league. I don't want to say that because you still got guys like Luka, you still got guys like Tatum, you still got guys like Ja Morant, Trae Young, you still got those guys, but he could be up there with those names very, very soon. So I want to move on here because this is good time content. This is good time media. We're all about a good time here, but unfortunately, reality strikes with certain teams. One of those teams that we're about to talk about is the Los Angeles. And in no way, I know what you see here. Celtics here, Celtics there, Celtics back there. But it's not what it looks like. This Lakers team is legitimately stinking it up. And I don't care if it's only been 3 games. They will be the first. They will be the first team to tell you that they stink right now. LeBron James will tell you they stink right now. That's how bad they stink. 0-3 start. They get Anthony Davis back. They get Lonnie Walker, which is I thought was a great pickup, great young guy. I thought actually the Celtics could have, maybe gotten him. They get Kendrick Nunn back. LeBron James obviously coming off of his and he's 37 years old. Hopefully Russell Westbrook, Patrick Beverly, hopefully can those two mesh. We had a lot of questions coming in for the Lakers, and a lot of those questions are getting answered in not such a good way. Just 3 games into the NBA regular season. They had a horrible preseason as well. But Seamus, they're, and when I tell you they're bad, they're like horrible. They are 30th in points per game. And that's something I want to touch on right off the bat because they have these defensive, Patrick Beverly, Russell Westbrook. These dudes can play defense. There's no denial on that. It's the offense that's the big issue. They're shooting awful. I think they shot 9 of 46 from 3-point range against the Los Angeles Clippers the other night. That is historically bad. That's worse than when the Celtics only made 2 threes against the Washington Wizards last year. They are 30th in points per game. That's dead last in the league at 103 points per game. They're on the bottom half of rebounds per game. That's 17th, 20th in assists per game, and 15th in opponents' points per game. So these guys, their team statistics is in the top 15, the top half of the league. It's all in the bottom half of the league. Seamus, what is going on with the Los Angeles Lakers? I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but what sticks out to yourself?
Well, I don't even know where to start with this team, quite honestly. I don't know where to start with this team. I know that every time, you see players and coaches get together before the game or during practice, and how they're sitting over there with the assistant coaches on the little laptop, right?
Yep.
The Lakers, LeBron and Anthony Davis, they're watching 2020 highlights right now. They're watching 2020 NBA Finals highlights on those laptops because this team, they know this team is going absolutely nowhere. And I'm getting just a little bit worried right now, just a little bit worried with the Lakers, where a couple years ago we were worried the fact, they could win the finals, and they ended up winning the finals in the bubble. Now, Victor Wembanyama's coming out of the draft, and the Lakers legitimately look like a bottom 5 team.
Right.
They look like a bottom 5 team. I look at the roster. What's keeping this team from being a bottom 5 team, quite honestly? I know we have LeBron James, but he's 38. He's the 38-year-old LeBron. And we saw the last 2 seasons, he can't just put a team on his back anymore, lead them to the playoffs, lead them to the finals. And all the teams that he did, by the way, had talent, way more talent than this. And he was going up against way lesser competition than what we see in the league now. The Lakers roster, I mean, I'm tired of hearing, I know you said they need shooters, and that's completely true. But
Right.
everybody, oh, they need this, they need that.
Yeah.
The Lakers need talent. They
Right.
need talent. They have 38-year-old LeBron. This is honestly the worst version of AD we've seen so far.
Yeah.
I still think he can be a great player, and he still is a great player. He's only 29 years old, but Anthony Davis, the way he's settling for jump shots right now, the way he's playing on the defensive end of the floor, and that's a whole nother conversation with the team as a whole that I'll get to in a second. But this is the worst version of AD. You have a 38-year-old LeBron, worst version of AD. Russell Westbrook, who absolutely hates his situation. It doesn't seem like he wants to come off the bench whatsoever. We saw his interaction the other night with the media, which was just strange. He thought his 2-point 0 of 11 performance was a solid opening night performance in a game in which they lost. So there's your big three right there. 38-year-old LeBron, the worst version of AD, and Russell Westbrook, who, of course, has never really been the biggest winner in his career, and somebody who hates the team right now. And, oh, the rest of the roster absolutely sucks. I know that probably isn't the most formal category or word to use for this, but the roster sucks. The roster sucks. I don't know what I don't know why ESPN, I don't know why all these outlets beat around the bush. Juan Toscano-Anderson, Lonnie Walker, Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverly, these are guys you're not bringing into a playoff series and playing major minutes. If the Celtics signed Patrick Beverly, where do you think he would legitimately slot into the rotation? He'd be like the 8th or 9th guy. Not even.
Right.
He might not even be in the rotation if we're being honest. If he's on the Celtics, Patrick Beverly, I know he's touted in the NBA.
Yeah.
Is he in their rotation? I don't
Him
even
and Blake
know.
are playing patty cake at the end of the bench.
Yeah, and yet he's essentially the third best player on the Lakers right now. And that's just fact. I, of course, I'm a Celtics fan. We're both Celtics fans, and it sounds like we're just hating on the Lakers.
No.
But their team is just absolutely garbage. They might be a bottom 5 team legitimately, even though they have LeBron. The whole LeBron AD point is getting a little bit old, considering the fact LeBron is getting a little bit old. He's still great. AD is the worst version of himself. But also, these other teams around the league, this is what's so big with LeBron and the Lakers. LeBron and AD thought they could go to the Lakers, take up all this cap. Obviously, Russell Westbrook joined them in taking up that cap later on in time. They thought they could fill out the rest of the roster with a bunch of minimum guys. Well, now in today's NBA, LeBron and AD, they were forming that star tandem back in 2019, 2020, and they were the best duo in the league, no doubt. Who was challenging them? Kawhi and Paul George? That was really the only other duo challenging them that year. Yet now, you look, AD, is he a top 25 player right now? Probably not. No, LeBron, he's still a top 5 player, but you have other guys in the league. Giannis, I think he is the league's LeBron now. You have Steph Curry out there. You have Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown in the East. You have all of these players around the NBA who are stars now, stars at the top of these teams who can lead these teams to the finals. Think about out west, the Suns, Devin Booker. All of these teams have stars and star tandems, and the Lakers are not special in that regard anymore. And not only are they not special in that regard, they don't have the rest of the roster the rest of the league has. And so right now, the Lakers, they're just in a debacle. I have no idea what the end game for this is. I think they probably, most likely, undoubtedly, unless they make a move, miss the playoffs once again, miss the play-in. And from that point forward, LeBron, he's in LA another 2 years. What actually happens from here on out? LeBron just going to waste another career year in LA dealing with Lonnie Walker, Juan Toscano-Anderson. I love these guys as players, but let's be honest. They're not your 5th. They're not your 4th. They're not your 6th best players on a championship contending team, unfortunately. And that's just what the Lakers are dealing with right now.
I make this comparison a lot. The Lakers roster, even last year, is basically like a 2K roster where you're finding these free agents, you're signing them, and you're going to want to either get rid of them, sit them at the end of the rotation, or trade them away to get another asset. That's exactly what this team is. This team is quite literally a 2K team, where last year, towards the end of the year, they acquired guys like DJ Augustine and I can't even think of the other names, but it was just these random meshes of players. And that's what they're doing this year. They're trying to buy their team and it's not working. The Lakers, obviously one of the in all of sports, they're not patient. They are not patient. They went through the final years of Kobe Bryant missing the playoffs. They couldn't take that. LeBron comes first year, they missed the playoffs. They didn't want to build Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma. I'm definitely, obviously, forgetting names here. Josh Hart, D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle. I mentioned Kyle Kuzma. They didn't want to wait around for those. So what did they do? They traded them to go to a win now situation. Yeah, they won a title in the bubble. What have they done since then? They haven't even made the playoffs. And when they did make they got smoked by Jay Crowder and the Phoenix Suns, who I know they went on to play the Bucks in the NBA Finals. But are you serious? Again, it's going to make it look like two Celtic fans are bashing the Lakers, but Lakers fans will say the exact same thing. They won't lie. It's getting ridiculous at this point. And you mentioned their shooting is not the only problem, and I totally agree with that, but they're shooting 22% from three in the season. That is a major problem. That's not the only problem, but that is a major problem. And Celtics had similar kind of problems last year with shooting at the deadline, and a lot of Celtics fans were like, "Oh, play Sam Hauser, play Matt Ryan." Okay, yeah, they're good shooters. One, are they even going to crack the rotation even if we sign them? Probably not. Two, are they going to come in and, as unexperienced as they are they going to for sure hit 42.6% of their three-point shots? Probably not. And that's the type of game you have to play. But there are guys that the Lakers are going out to get, and it's just not helping them. They say they need shooters. They say they need this. They say they need that. No, you need a lot more than what you're saying right now. And GM, and I could never do what the NBA general managers do, but I feel like when you look at the Lakers roster, it's kind of a little bit of common sense. And that Lakers are lacking right now, common sense. And, I'm sitting here, as a dude just sitting in his basement talking about the NBA on a morning show with his buddy. But I just think what the Lakers have right now is a major, I can't do it, but like one eyebrow goes up, one goes down, one of those type of deals. Yeah, one of those. Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, I couldn't really see it, but
right, it's a head scratcher. I could do that. It's a head scratcher. I just, I continue to question what the hell are the Lakers doing? And what are the guys around them doing? I hope Russell Westbrook has a comeback season. I do. I don't hate Russell Westbrook. I don't knock Russell Westbrook. I think how the Laker fans are treating him, I think I understand it, but at the same time, it's like, hey, look, man, he's wearing a Lakers uniform. You got to cheer for him. You got to try to hype this guy up. By you booing, by you yelling things, by you saying slurs and all that, that's only bringing him down. That's only, like, he says he doesn't listen to it, but come on, we know it gets to him and his family. By you, Lakers fans saying that, you're attacking your own team. That's friendly fire. You want him to do good. You want to ball. You hope that he makes the shot. I don't know how the hell he hits the top of the backboard every shot he shoots, but you hope it goes in. You're gonna want to hope it goes in. The Lakers and the Lake Show in Hollywood, all that is confusing me right now, Seamus. But say something real quick, because we got to go to break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about, we talk about the crappy teams of the West. Well, we're going to have to come back and talk about a team that's stinking it up East. So why don't you give up your finishing touches here?
I just want to say one more short thing on the Lakers. Looks like it wasn't Frank Vogel's fault. Fired him for no reason. Fired him for no reason. You fired a good coach. Now, they did hire a good coach, Darvin Ham, but they fired a good coach for no reason.
Right.
Scapegoated him, fired him. That's the sign of a bad organization.
That's
I don't know.
That's a good point. I'm glad you said that. Because they swore that was the problem. They got rid of him, and now they're 0-3, bottom of the Western Conference, 30th in points per game. 20th in assists per game and 17th in rebounds. I mean, come on. I don't care if it's only 3 games. Like, come on, common sense. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Word from our sponsors. Wyatt should be popping up on your screen right about now.
Guys, what's up? If you don't know me, my name's Wyatt. This whole thing, good time? That's me. I hope you guys are enjoying the Lowe Zone as much as I am. I'm just here to tell you about what else we got going on here at Good Time. Every day, noon Eastern time, we're live. I'm live right here on the Bum. Tune in. We talk about literally everything. It's basically a show predicated on what you want to talk about. You see these lovely people over here or over here. I honestly don't know which side it's on. One of these sides, there's a list of our A-listers. Those are the top 10 people who hang out with us every day, ask questions, donate, tip, whatever. They hang out with us, and I love them to death. And you, too, can be on the A-list if you want. Hang out with me every day at noon. Also, every Monday, we have Battle Flicks, hosted by the lovely Eli Hedrick. Good dude. Good-looking dude. Great stash. We got a lot of stuff going. And guess what? One thing's for certain. It'll always be a good time. Back to the show.
Welcome back into the Lowe Zone. If you're just joining us, I'm Justin Lowe alongside Seamus Zarlingo, welcoming you back into the Lowe Zone for our second half of the portion of the show. We shoot every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. Eastern time to 11 a.m. Eastern. Today, we've touched on Paolo Banchero. We touched on other rookies in the NBA. That was a really positive portion episode. Then we kind of had to get real, talk about the Los Angeles Lakers stinking it up in the Western Conference, in the bottom half of the league in almost every statistic possible. But how about out east, coming towards our way, Seamus? The Philadelphia 76ers, bottom of the Atlantic Division, bottom of the Eastern Conference, 0-3 start. These guys have a lot of questions, similar to the Lakers, that need to be answered. And unfortunately for them, they're being answered quite quickly, but again, not in the way six in the organization want them to be answered. Last year, at the trade deadline, they shipped out Ben Simmons, and they got James Harden. James Harden comes over to Philly, and all of a sudden, they're the next Shaq and Kobe. Joel Embiid, and James Harden. All of a sudden, they haven't even played a game. The next Shaq and Kobe. And, you know, they go to the playoffs, nearly blow an 3-0 lead against the Raptors. That would have been the first time ever. Round, they lost. And all of a sudden, you come back here, media day comes around. Doc Rivers liking some suspicious tweets, some suspicious, activity. And all of a sudden, this Sixers team is a mess. And I mean a mess. What's going on in South Philly?
To me, this is a classic example of people looking at a roster and loving the individual pieces of a roster, but never taking into account how well a roster can mesh together. Because I believe the Sixers do have a lot of good ingredients, right? They have a lot of good ingredients together on that roster. They have Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, PJ Tucker now, Furkan Korkmaz off the bench, Shake Milton, DeAnthony Melton. They have all of these players in which Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, can have individual success in their own regards to their own skill sets. That being said, looking at their team as a whole, I just find there is this philosophy that just doesn't quite match, doesn't quite mesh with them. And we'll see how it plays out over time. But the NBA is going fast-paced on the perimeter. We're speeding it up. That's what teams are doing. We're speeding up. We're seeing our own team, and the Celtics do it this season. They tried to do it last season. They had tried to implement it at the end of last season. Right. Pace, 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 pace. We hear it all the time. And yet, the Philadelphia 76ers, they're going the other way. They're going less pace, less pace, less pace. Let's slow it down for Joel. Let's slow it down for James Harden in isolation. And not only that, they have a young and up-and-coming star in Tyrese Maxey who wants to push the pace, push the pace, push the pace. And he is honestly a great player to have on their roster and somebody who undoubtedly fits in today's modern NBA. Yeah, you have James Harden and Joel Embiid. Those are your two stars. Those are the two dudes they're catering to. And so far, they're playing very, very slow with those two. Of course, you kind of have to a little bit with Joel Embiid. But there's just a philosophy mix-up there, specifically with their offense, that I just don't see working out in the long run. Now, I know I'm a Celtics fan. I know a lot of people still love the Sixers, and they're 0-3. But I still see a problem within their team that I just don't know if their pieces, although they're really good individually, I don't know if they're going to come together and make something good together, because ultimately you could like mayo, you could like mustard, you could like ketchup, whatever. But if you mix them all together, do you like them all together? Some people do, some people don't. In the NBA, most likely this combination isn't going to mix well together. That being said, I will say the Sixers this year, they have good pieces. That's what I got to say. They have good pieces. They have good versatile pieces, but I just don't believe they fit well together. I don't necessarily believe they have the leadership at the top of the roster and in the coaching staff. Doc Rivers is, of course, proved to be a tremendous regular season head coach. In the playoffs, a little questionable. And not only that, James Harden, Joel Embiid, how much of leaders are they? We've seen Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and the whole leadership contingency happen in Boston. How does that shape out in Philly? Because they really they haven't made that run yet. They haven't gotten over the hump. They haven't established really, this is our core. This is our core play. They've established their superstar in Joel Embiid. But after that, everyone is kind of fit in next to Joel Embiid. And after that, how does that really play out? And how does that leadership role play out? Is it Doc Rivers, James Harden, Joel Embiid at the top? Is it more Tobias Harris? Who really knows? And are those the guys to get it done? The Sixers, I don't want to trash on them too much, but I will say after the start, it confirms a little bit of what I was thinking. But, it's nice to have it out in the world when they're down, I guess. Put it out into the world.
Look at this smile. You could see all 32 of my damn teeth, because everything you just said, and the more you talked, Seamus, the bigger my smile got. And that is because you just said right now, in this very second, again, about the Philadelphia 76ers. We said exactly a year ago about the Boston Celtics of the Eastern Conference. Can this team, we have great pieces. Oh, we have Dennis Schroeder, Josh Richardson. Those are two solid veteran pieces. But do they mesh together? Do they mesh with Tatum, Brown, Smart, Horford, Robert Williams, Jason Tatum? Those are our established stars. Those are established guys. Can they work together? I don't think so. I don't know. We don't know Udoka, so that's really kind of the difference we get. We know what we get out of Doc Rivers, but as a rookie head coach for Udoka, we didn't know what we were going to get out of him. But everything you said, we asked the same questions a year ago about the Boston Celtics, and that is going to be a problem that Philly sees, because, and the reason why I say it might be a little different, because in Philly's case, these guys are veterans. These guys have been there. These guys still have not gotten over that hump. Tatum and Brown, they were still relatively young last year. And I say relatively because they've also, 5-6 years in the league. They've been to Eastern Conference Final, but they finally got last year. Embiid and James Harden, those guys are vets. Those guys still haven't gotten over that hump. And that could be a problem. We see individual talent on that team. And you mentioned that. You mentioned we got the talented Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, unbelievable stud, young stud. Also, guys off the bench, Korkmaz, Tybalt, Montrezl Harrell is up there. But guess what? Those are all individual talents. These guys still haven't showed that they could be a team. We see a lot of problems about this Philadelphia team early on that we saw in Boston early on. And you know what that is? One-on-one basketball. That's the problem. Not the problem, but that's a problem. And these guys still have not figured out that they have 4 other guys on court with each other. How many times, and I went to the Celtics opener on Tuesday night against Philadelphia. I cannot tell you how many times there was one-on-one plays. There was no, directing traffic, ball movement, pass, swing, corner three, good. There was none of that. It was either James Harden coming down the court, sidestep, dribble, back up three, Tobias Harris, fast break, corner three, or a Joel Embiid dribbles the ball up himself. It backs down Luke. You know what I mean? Like that, those are Philadelphia's 3 plays. And they're all one-on-one based plays. And that is a huge problem and a huge reason why they just lost to the San Antonio Spurs last night, Friday night, or Saturday night, my bad. You look at the first 2 games, and I was watching that Philly game, and the Philly announcer even said this. You look at Boston, and you look, who else did they play? Oh, God, I'm blanking. They played Boston, another team. It was I forget who they played.
Bucks. I think it was the Bucks.
Yes, it was the Bucks. They lost by 10. You look at Boston, you look at Milwaukee. Those 2 teams had to be there at the end. You play hard during those 2 games. You figure, okay, we came up short in both games, first 2 games of the season against 2 projected Eastern Conference Finals teams. You live with that. But on nights against the San Antonio Spurs, with all due respect, because they are a great young team as well, with obviously one of the greatest head coaches of all time, Greg Popovich. But those are games you got to win. Those are games you need to find a way to win. Just like last night, the Celtics struggled against Orlando, but guess what? They've matured. They've found different ways to win. Philly, they still haven't found out how to win a game yet as a team. And Doc Rivers said at postgame, we need to figure out how to earn our wins. Aren't just handed to you in this league. No matter what teams you play, you have to earn that win. And we still haven't earned that win. We haven't found a way to earn that win. And that's a huge problem and a huge question. You have these veteran leaders in the locker room, Joel Embiid, James Harden, huge acquisition. You mentioned PJ Tucker. I thought that was a huge acquisition for them, just leadership-wise. Obviously, defensively, he's a beast, but leadership-wise, these guys clearly haven't spoken loud enough for the young guys or just for anyone to hear, because the Philadelphia 76ers are stinking it up in the Eastern Conference. And I mean stinking it up.
Oh, no doubt. And what you said about their offense, I completely follow on that point. I mean, what I don't understand about the Philadelphia 76ers is what they see right now in Joel Embiid and James Harden. I think there might be a little bit of a worry, just a little bit. I think there always is with teams, because even with the Kyrie teams back in the day who didn't win, we didn't win a title with Kyrie. We were still worried about those teams. They never really came out on top. But the Sixers nowadays, I'm not really quite certain what they see in James Harden and Joel Embiid together on the court. And this almost feels like not a forced matchup in any sense, because I think, 5 years ago, this pairing could have legitimately been that LeBron AD duo we're talking about, one of the best duos in the league. But nowadays you have James Harden, who, to me, yes, he's in shape, but he's still past where he once was in his career. And Joel Embiid, he gets injured every year. I love his game, but again, he's a slow paced type of player that you have to build around in that manner. And so far, they've done a little bit of this, a little bit of both. And I just don't know if that philosophy is going to work out. And like you said, with their isolation on offense, they're a slow-paced offense that goes isolation a lot with James Harden, a lot with Joel Embiid, and there's not a lot of ball movement. And in today's NBA, like we talked about, there's a lot of ball movement, there's a lot of pace, there's a lot of teams running in transition, there's a lot of teams getting those extra opportunities when they're easy, right? The Sixers, all of their buckets are hard. All of their buckets are hard. This is a point of emphasis that, people should, I guess, point out for the Celtics a lot, is the reason the Celtics shooting numbers went up. And I hate to, I guess, use the Celtics as an example so much on this show, but I guess that's just going to happen naturally over time. But the reason their shooting numbers went up over time is the fact they started to generate open shots for themselves. They started to generate more open shots. And ultimately with the Sixers team, they're not generating more and more open shots for themselves. They're not giving themselves those easy opportunities in which teams usually feast on, good teams. And so far, we just haven't quite seen that out of the Sixers. Now, it's still early, still October, still a long way to go. But I just see there's a little bit of a philosophy crunch here with the Sixers. Feels like the NBA is trying to go one way, and they're trying to go another way, and it feels as if that other way is just a purely inefficient way, especially with the players now they have on their roster.
And a big thing to me that sticks out, and that kind of follows up with your point about about that, and it's I don't think Philadelphia. It's about creating open shots. I don't think Philadelphia has yet learned how to play off ball because there's a lot of one-on-one action going on in that locker room in that with that team. Therefore, a lot of guys are used to the ball in their hands, dribbling it one-on-one. They're not used to moving around, creating space. Remember, creating space isn't just passing and moving the ball. Creating space is setting off-ball screens, moving around. When you watch the Philadelphia team, they're standing around. A majority of them aren't even moving. They're standing in the corner, sticking around, playing as they let their teammate go iso ball. It's like they take turns, and that's a lot what it looks like. And for Boston, again, we're alluding, and I think not only because we're Celtics fans, but I think Boston is a press. They were in a similar position a year ago. They're in the same division, same conference. There's a lot related between the two teams. And Boston had to not play like that. How to not, I mean, every possession was a Jason Tatum sidestep three or a Jaylen Brown drive to the basket or, a Marcus Smart pull up three. Instead, now we have guys, Marcus Smart learned how to play both on ball and off ball. Same thing with Brown and Tatum. They added guys like Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, Danilo Gallinari, who are great off the ball. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon, a point guard, he plays great. He's learning how to play off ball, and he's having a great season so far for the Celtics. Obviously, his shooting numbers could be better, but that's, we're talking about the Sixers here. But yeah, really, really just needs to learn how to play team basketball. And again, that's kind of also common sense when you move the ball and when you get into that rhythm, it's something that is somewhat unbeatable. I mean, the way the Celtics are moving the ball right now and the way they're playing, I think Philly should literally watch the Celtics film, watch the Los Angeles Clippers film. The Clippers have gotten off to a great season. The Milwaukee Bucks, these guys have been there before. Guys like Celtics have gotten over that hump into the finals. The Bucks actually won the finals, and that's because these two teams play team basketball. And Philly's going to have to figure that. Yes, you mentioned it's only October, but guess what? It's already the end of October. They're already 3 games in. The NBA season is a snap of a finger, whether you suck or you're great. It goes by with a blink of an eye. And we noticed that last year. And, Philly, they need to have time to clean things up because, again, like you said, it's October. It moves pretty quick. It's almost time for trick-or-treats. And then after trick-or-treats, it's time to get the turkeys out. And after the turkeys, it's time for the Christmas, So, I mean, the season moves along so quickly. And Philly, 3 straight losses, that's going to happen. But that's a lot to pick up. You know what I mean? Like the East, you mentioned this earlier. The East specifically has gotten so much more dominant over the recent years, I'd say 2-3 years, than it was, obviously 3 years ago. You can't play catch up in the NBA, even if it's early. We saw this with the Celtics last year. This is a horrible example, but like the Celtics are so lucky. The Celtics are so lucky to come back from 21 and 24, whatever it was, and in a result to that, we saw in the how fatigued they were. And that's because they had to win 32 of their final 36 games just to get to where they were. And that is going to happen to the Philadelphia Sixers if they don't clean things up quick. We have 10 minutes left in the show. We talked about the Lakers. We talked about the Sixers. Those two teams are struggling right now, but overall, altogether, Seamus, will start in the Western Conference. Who do you see? Who owns the Western Conference? Who owns the Western Conference? Not even right now, just even in the future, who owns the Western Conference right now?
I'm honestly not ready to definitively answer this question because right now, I don't know. I really don't know. Everybody, of course, is going to pick the finals team from last year. They're going to pick the Golden State Warriors. And that's fair because the Warriors, they have the establishment there. They have the roster clearly in place. And the players they lost last year, Otto Porter, Gary Payton II, they replaced those guys with guys coming in this year, JaMychal Green and Dante DiVincenzo. So not only are they getting better per se from adding James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga is going to be another year older. Moses Moody is going to be another year older. All those guys, they're coming off a championship. Wiggins and Poole, they're going to be paid. Not only that, but they have these other guys in which they replaced from last year, maybe not with quite as adequate players, but you have last year's roster plus the add-ons now this year and the improvement of the young guys. And the Golden State Warriors, I can completely see a case in which they still own the Western Conference and still have the best team. But some of these other teams look pretty good too. The Dallas Mavericks, of course, just whooped the Grizzlies last night. The Grizzlies are, of course, still a very, very real team as well. Everybody loves the Clippers. John Wall, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. Are they older, though, against some of these younger teams like the Grizzlies, like the Mavericks at the top? The Phoenix Suns are still right there. Are they still the dominant number one seed we saw the last 2 seasons? I'm not really convinced upon that so far from what we've seen both in media day, during their training camp, during preseason, and even during the season now so far. Even though our boy Damian Lee, former Celtic Damian Lee, saved him on opening night, I don't know about the Phoenix Suns so far this year. But you have your teams there at the top, the Nuggets as well. These are all teams to me in which could undoubtedly grab the number one seed this year. And I think it could be quite the race in the West. I know, the East has been given a lot of praise this year and how deep it's been. But looking at the West, I'm looking at the West. There are teams at the top of the East I expect to be number one. I expect the Celtics to be there. I expect the Bucks to be there. And then, those are really your top 2 teams in my mind. You might consider the Heat in there, even though they're less talented. They're more of they play better basketball. Back to the West, I think you could have, anyone from 1 to 7 be the number 1 seed this year and that not be crazy, because last year we saw Memphis. They grabbed the number 2 seed a couple of years ago. Denver in 2018-19, when we didn't expect Denver to be all that great, they went out there and grabbed the number 2 seed. I definitely believe somebody in the West could be Portland for, as crazy as their story has been the last couple of years. Could they be the number 2 seed, 3 seed if their team works out this year? Who knows? I think the West this year specifically is wide open. We have the good teams at the top, no doubt. We have some of the contenders for that number 1 spot. But I do think throughout the year, this could be an insane race in the West, because I do look at it right now, and I just can't put any team like 1, 2, any team really to me could slot from 2 all the way down to 10 in the West. And there's a little like the talent discrepancy from roster to roster to me just isn't all that much to determine, hey, this team is definitively better than this team. And so ultimately the West, I think specifically at the top, we're going to see quite the race. The Nuggets, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, all these teams are going to be just fantastic to watch this season.
It's crazy to me because there was one team, you did it on purpose, but there was one team you didn't freaking mention. You mentioned the Portland Trailblazers. You mentioned the Denver Nuggets. You did not mention the New Orleans Pelicans, who are 2-0 right now, and they look sharp. They look sharp. They could stay healthy, Seamus. If they could stay healthy, top 5 team in the West.
They might be your number 1 seed in the West. I mean, you think Zion could be. I mean, Zion was touted as literally the best number 1 pick since AD, and then before that, LeBron. So LeBron, AD, who are generational talents, of course. Well, AD for that short period of time, unfortunately, and then Zion. If Zion is who he says, or who we all say he is, which of course every single night it appears as such. Like, there's really no like, oh, is Zion this? Like, every time we see him play, we see it. Zion, Brandon Ingram is only ascending. He's only ascending. He looks like he's in his most comfortable state right now in New Orleans. He's in a position of success. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, he's gone back to his high school look, folks. He's gone back to his high school look. He went to the NBA, kind of got blinged out a little bit, right, with the braids, and got everything good done, right? Now he's back to his high school look, and I feel like he's playing with a more just better sense of himself than ever, really. And I think Brandon Ingram, too, has been one of the most confident NBA players, most irrationally confident NBA players we've seen in the league in the last 10 years, honestly. But I do agree the New Orleans Pelicans could be there at the end. They could undoubtedly be the number 1 seed. If you look at their roster, this is kind of what I'm talking about with the West. you can't really distinguish their roster from a roster like the Warriors. The Warriors won the championship last year. They have a championship roster, obviously. And you look at the Pelicans roster and you go, they stack up quite nicely. They have the versatility there. They have the scoring. They have the star power at the top. There's really nothing that should hold the Hornets back. New Orleans Pelicans back, rather. And you look to their coach, Willie Green, former player, almost like an Ime Udoka situation.
Correct.
In a sense, although he was more of a player even for that franchise a long time ago. And he's created a culture there that is going to stick, undoubtedly, and it's going to stick for a long, long time, I believe. So you have everything going right now in New Orleans. It was weird because for that moment in 2019, it looked like they had everything going. Then they went down the hill. Of course, Lonzo Ball, all that didn't work out. And now we're talking about them potentially number 1 seed in the West. And that is not something that we're joking about at all. The Pelicans could legitimately be the number 1 seed this year. And I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Well, look, we got to wrap up the show. But really quick before we do so, Seamus, I want you, who's your pick for the East? Who's the Eastern Conference pick?
Well, I mean, the Celtics look amazing. I can't pick my own team, right? So let's just swat away our own team. Yeah. Swat away our own team because our own team might actually be the best team. Like, that's just kind of you look at our roster, right? The Bucks, to me, the Bucks are entering a phase in which it's like almost the LeBron era that, LeBron isn't going to carry. I guess LeBron in this era wouldn't have carried a team to the finals every single year. But I do think Giannis, he kind of has that sort of ability potentially. Mm-hmm. And I do think the safe bet in the long run, Giannis and the Bucks. If it isn't the Celtics, it's Giannis and the Bucks this year. I think Giannis, he's the next generation's Jordan, LeBron. I believe that is Giannis. Everybody says Luka. You can say other players, but I really do think Giannis Antetokounmpo will be this generation's GOAT. And that is why I'm picking Giannis and the Bucks to make it out of the East if the Celtics don't make it out.
I'm right with you. I really am. From the Giannis to the Bucks of the East over the South, I really am. I just love what the Bucks have, and I'm just I'm a huge Giannis fan. I don't know how people don't see his talent. I mean, some people I think refuse to see it. But look, we're gonna wrap it up really quick. We're gonna hear from Wyatt one more time, and then we'll be back to wrap up the show.
Guys, what's up? If you don't know me, my name's Wyatt. This whole thing, good time? That's me. I hope you guys are enjoying the Lowe Zone as much as I am. I'm just here to tell you about what else we got going on here at Good Time. Every day, noon Eastern time, we're live. I'm live right here on the Bum. Tune in. We talk about literally everything. It's basically a show predicated on what you want to talk about. You see these lovely people over here or over here. I honestly don't know which side it's on. One of these sides, there's a list of our A-listers. Those are the top 10 people who hang out with us every day, ask questions, donate, tip, whatever. They hang out with us, and I love them to death. And you, too, can be on the A-list. If you want, hang out with me every day at noon. Also, every Monday, we have Battle Flicks, hosted by the lovely Eli Hedrick. Good dude. Good-looking dude. Great stash. We got a lot of stuff going. And guess what? One thing's for certain. It'll always be a good time. Back to the show.
Thank you once again, Wyatt. Everybody go check out Wyatt and his show, The Bum, airing weekdays, weekday Monday through Friday at noon. It's a great show. I've been a part. It was super cool. That's actually how we met, was through that show. He had me on for an interview during the NBA Finals. I joined this Good Time Media team, and the Celtics went 0-3 in the NBA Finals. So if you're going to blame anybody as a Celtics fan, blame him. Look, before we close out, usually I do this in the beginning of the episode, but I really like to talk about some positive things here, and wish happy birthdays upon everybody in the NBA and in the WNBA. Current players, Jordan Goodwin, happy birthday, born in 1998.
My guy.
Kobo, he's your guy. You love him?
Who?
Jordan Goodwin.
Yes, Jordan Goodwin. He's from 15 minutes away from me. Not even 15, more like 10.
Hey,
he went to high school.
Perfect.
In Belleville, Illinois, Althoff Catholic High School. I saw him play as a freshman in high school. Freshman.
That's awesome. What a coincidence.
Okay, this dude was huge as a freshman. Okay, big hands, right? Jordan Goodwin, shout out. Saw him play in high school so many times. Saw him play against Jason Tatum, by the way, too. Altop versus Shamanon. Got my tongue tied there twice. But Jordan Goodwin versus Jason Tatum, that was a thing back in 2016, and it was amazing. It was in Highland, Illinois. So shout out Jordan Goodwin. I cannot believe he's actually in the NBA. He's a two-way player for the Washington Wizards. Ooh, that gives me.
Wow,
chills.
that was perfect. That like what a great end to the show. Like that was your first show on. It's your boy Jordan's birthday. Like that couldn't have been a more perfect thing. So happy birthday, Jordan Goodwin, Elia Kobo, and then over in the WNBA, Taylor Hill. Happy birthday to all three of you amazing basketball players. I can never do what you do. I could probably shoot the rock, but I couldn't dunk. I've tried to dunk. I can't dunk. I can't touch net. But until then, look. This has been a pleasure. Episode 3 of the Lowe Zone. We covered a lot. It was a big opening week in the NBA. Join us next weekend, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern, same time, right here on the Good Time Media YouTube page. For now, I'm Justin Lowe. That's Seamus Zarlingo. You can catch us on Celtics Talk Weekly. That's my podcast over there. Celtics Talk Weekly podcast. We post weekly podcasts. We've been really busy, so we haven't posted podcasts in a while. But last night was our first Celtics postgame show back. So join us Monday night on Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel, moments after the final buzzer for you Celtics fans. But until then, Lowe Zone. I don't know what Seamus, we gotta call our people a name. We'll have to figure it out to call our chat some names. But join us next weekend. We're super excited. Thank you so much. Seamus, any closing remarks? This is your first big show. I appreciate you coming on.
I don't know. Go Pats. It's Sunday.
Yes, go Pats. Hey, they play tomorrow, don't they?
Oh, that's right. They play the Bears tomorrow on Monday. But anyway, still football Sunday. Victory Tuesday, I guess, this week.
I'm a Packers guy, so go Packers. Vikings. I don't know how the Vikings are winning. I think it's a fake season. Wyatt is a big Vikings guy, so I don't know. I think they're cheating or something, deflating footballs. I don't know. Something's going on down there. But until next week, I'm Justin Lowe. That's Seamus Zarlingo. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday morning with us. Take care.